her as a part and treat her as a partner in a subject where he clearly has, a lot more experience.
I'm not denying that Jake said that. Obviously, I'm
reveal some of his thinking about how he's got to balance this.
I think you have to look at this in separate pieces, right? The president has been president for some time. I used to say this all the time: with age comes experience, right? And I think that's important to note. And he's had relationships with many of these leaders that are currently, out there in this present time, in present day. What I also want to state is that the vice president has been vice president for 3.5 years. She has been part of this administration, obviously, not just part of it, but a partner, and has developed her own relationship with world leaders, with our allies and partners. And I think that's important to note. She was part in having conversations with the Chancellor of Germany, for example, in starting to get us on a path for what we're seeing today. And so, obviously, we feel that she's, immensely qualified. That's why the president endorsed her. That's why she is, certainly a partner to him, but also is doing her part in the next, being careful here, in the next 4 months. So I'll leave it there. But look, they are partners. They talk regularly. I think I would say they've learned from each other, right, with this partnership over the 3.5 years. But this is also a vice president who's been a senator, who's been an attorney general, again, a vice president for almost 4 years, and has been in conversation, in critical, important conversations that matter to the American people pretty regularly with the president, having her by the president's side. And I think that matters. And that's important. Go ahead, Karen.
Karine, can you tell us about the condition of Evan, Paul, also Vladimir? How is their health, and did that come up when they had those phone calls in your office?
I'm not going to get into details or into specifics or speak about their health. Obviously, they will be landing here in short order in a couple of hours, so you all will be able to see, at least you'll see them for yourselves, but I'm not going to speak to their health from here, not from this podium.
Describe that they've gone through a lot. Did they
They
talk
have. They were imprisoned.
Yeah.
Unjustly so.
Did they talk about that in their phone call to the Oval Office?
I'm not going to get into further details to what the National Security Advisor shared here today. I'm pretty sure that when the time permits, they will, I'm sure, at some point, if they wish to, they'll speak for themselves. Get it.
Yeah, thanks, Karine. So Germany got 12 citizens back on this. Were they negotiating with the Russians, and was this two negotiations that merged, or did this generate out of the U.S., talking about the U.S. prisoners?
Look, I think we've laid out in pretty detail on how this occurred. Obviously, the U.S. played a leading role in this, and we are certainly very grateful to our allies that worked with us on this. Obviously, I talked about Germany, Slovenia, and so I don't have anything beyond what we've already shared with you on this. I don't want to get into specifics or details. We have already shared how this came about. Look, this is an important day. And truly, as I've been asked a couple times, because of this president's leadership, we have been able to get this done. We have been able to get home about 70 Americans who were unjustly imprisoned and held in the last 3.5 years. That's because this president has shown his commitment, and the vice president has shown their commitment on doing that. And I think it sends, today and many other days that we've been able to get this done, it sends a message to the American people that we will put them first, always, as it relates to foreign policy, national security, making sure that we are getting Americans home. And I'll leave it there.
Are there going to be any events here at the White House with the prisoners, the American prisoners who are coming back? I know we're going to Andrews.
No, I hear you. I can't speak to anything this evening. I mean, obviously, they're going to be landing here this evening, and my guess is they're going to want to see their families, hold their families, hug their families. It's been a long journey for them, not just getting home, but these past couple of years. And that is my guess, is that's what they're going to want to do. This is an emotional day. And it's a good day. We should be really, really proud of what this administration has been able to do. And don't have anything beyond that. Yeah, Gary.
It's great. Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee is being arrested in Houston, and one of her signature bills in Congress was H.R. 40, which, as you know, would create a commission to study the issue of reparations for African Americans. She took up that mantle from Congressman the late John Conyers, and after more than 30 years of this bill being introduced, Congress has yet to be able to pass this bill. And as a result, Congresswoman Jackson Lee, when she was still alive, she urged, along with advocates for President Biden, to take executive action. Though the White House has repeatedly said that the president's position is that it should happen through Congress, I do wonder, given with only 6 months left of his administration and to honor her legacy, whether the president is more amenable to taking executive action, especially given the fact that he announced those Supreme Court reforms that came from a similar commission.
Look, Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee, who the president had an opportunity to go to Houston earlier this week to meet with her family, to offer up his condolences in person, and you saw the statement that he put out after we learned of her passing. She was a hero. She was beloved, obviously, by the people in Texas and Houston and the community that she represented, but also beyond that. Certainly her colleagues in the Congressional Black Caucus and in Congress more broadly. And we lift her up and we honor her, not just through legislative action, but obviously honor the work that she has been able to do and what she has meant to so many. As far as the commission, the president has not changed where he is. He believes there should be a commission, and he does believe it should be a legislative process. Obviously, we think it's important. We want to help in any way to get that legislation done, but I just don't have anything else to add beyond that. Okay.
Thank you, Corinne. Can you talk about the support from Turkey? This morning in a briefing, Jake Sullivan mentioned that Turkey provided logistical support, but what we're hearing now is that they are coordinating the exchange. Is that an accurate description? And also, did the U.S. give the Turkish government anything in return for their support?
So look, this was a big effort, as I mentioned before, and I was answering a question from one of your colleagues. It took our partners and allies to get this done, and we appreciate every effort that was done by them. Obviously, I think Jake was also asked if there was a phone call made recently to Erdogan. Obviously, I don't have anything to read out at this time, but it was, and they did offer technical support, as you know. I don't have anything beyond that to share, but we are very grateful for the role that they have been able to play to get Americans home today. And so I just don't have anything beyond of what we've already been able to share.
Give us an update on American journalist Austin Tice that's held in Syria, and also just beyond that. I mean, obviously, our network, we're very grateful and relieved that Alsu is freed, but there are other journalists in our network and who may not be Americans. We have colleagues held in Belarus, in Russian-occupied Crimea, in Myanmar, families of Uyghur journalists held by China. Again, these are not American journalists, but would the White House be able to say a position on their team?
So look, I'm not going to go by person and take a position, but the president's been very clear on the importance of the freedom of the press, of the importance of journalists being allowed to do the work that they should be doing, right? Being able to report and see, what is happening on the ground wherever they are, and reporting and making sure they are freely able to do that. And the president has those tough conversations with leaders that he meets privately, and we've been very clear publicly about supporting journalists and the work that they do, and being able to do that work freely and not be intimidated and without violence. And so that's something that we're going to continue to be very, very clear about. You just listed out a bunch of names. I don't want to go point by point on these names, but more broadly, we believe in the freedom of the press. This is important to us. We believe it's part of our democracy, and we want to see, not just here, it's important to see that obviously across the world. I don't have anything specific for you at this time. When it comes to Americans being unjustly held, wrongfully detained, As you have seen from this president in the last 3.5 years, he's going to do everything that he can. I think today is a perfect example. Bringing home 70 Americans over the last 3.5 years is a perfect example of this president being committed to bringing home Americans who have been unjustly held. I think I'm going to have to wrap it up pretty soon. Go ahead, John.
Thanks a lot, Karine. When the president announced 2 Sundays ago that he's withdrawing from the race, and that he's not running for another term, there were some that described him as a lame duck president. How does this news today, this joyous news at the White House, answer those critics describing President Biden in that fashion?
Well, I'm glad you call it joyous news, because it is. This is very, very good news. For all of us as Americans, we should be very proud of this moment. Look, I've heard the term lame duck. I was asked at the podium if he is a lame duck president. We've been very clear that he's not, and today is an example of that. What he did on Monday, talking about SCOTUS reform, is an example of that. The president is determined, and he is very focused, along with the vice president, to get things done, to build on the accomplishments that we have been able to deliver for the American people over the last 3.5 years. And these are historic accomplishments, whether it's the American Rescue Plan that turned the economy around, restarted the economy. Now we're leading in the world on that. Again, no Republicans voted for the American Rescue Plan. You think about the Inflation Reduction Act, no Republican voted for that, and that is a piece of legislation that has seen the biggest investment in climate change. Now Medicare can actually negotiate with Big Pharma, something that elected officials have been trying to do, and he reached across the aisle to get infrastructure done, to get the CHIPS and Science Act done, to get the Veterans, the PACT Act done. So it doesn't end there. It doesn't end there for him. He wants to see a lot of these important laws now. He wants us to get them, make sure they're implemented. And we're going to continue to use the remainder of this term to look for ways to build on that progress. And we will certainly share with you the specifics of that as we continue these next 6 months.
And secondly, yesterday I asked a series of questions to you about the possibility of a hostage deal. At the time that I asked you those questions, were you aware?
Yes.
You were
Yes.
aware. And so, given that you just didn't want to answer that truthfully, you didn't want to despoil the process of the
I said I had
transfer of
nothing. I
hostages.
said I had nothing to share. You have to understand. You have to understand. This is a critical. As these things are moving, it is important. Our main focus is to make sure that we get these Americans home safely. I would hope